I bailed out my son many times before, but now he comes clean to me and tells he's in huge credit card debt. My son's shadow loomed in the doorway, a silhouette of guilt that made my stomach lurch before he even spoke. I'd seen that look before too many times when he'd crashed my car, flunked out of college, or borrowed cash he'd never repay. But this time, his eyes carried a weight that could crush us both. Ethan, my only child, stood there at 32, a grown man who still felt like the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, now drowning in a mess he'd hidden for years. He took a shaky breath, his voice barely above a whisper. Dad, I'm in deep. Credit cards. Over 100 grand. My heart stopped. Not at the number, but at the raw shame in his voice, a shame I'd never heard before. This wasn't the first time Ethan had come to me with his hand out. Over the years, I'd bailed him out more times than I could count. 5 grand for a wrecked car at 18, 10 for college tuition he swore he'd repay, and countless smaller loans for rent, groceries, or emergencies that always seemed to vanish into thin air. Each time I'd sigh, write the check, and tell myself it was love. What else was a father supposed to do? Watch his kids sink? But every bailout came with a silent promise he'd learn. He'd grow. He'd stop screwing up. And every time, I was wrong. Ethan slumped onto the couch, his hands fidgeting like they did when he was a kid caught sneaking cookies. The living room, usually warm with memories of Christmas mornings and movie nights, felt suffocating now. The stack of bills on the coffee table seemed to pulse with accusation. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, he said, his voice cracking. It started small: clothes, dinners, a new phone. Then I lost my job last year, and I just kept swiping. He looked up, his eyes pleading for something: forgiveness, understanding, or maybe just another lifeline. I wanted to yell, to shake him, and ask how he could be so reckless, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I saw the boy who used to cling to my leg during thunderstorms, begging me to make the world safe again. I leaned back in my armchair, the leather creaking under my weight. My own mistakes flashed through my mind. At his age, I'd been no saint, gambling away half our savings on sure bets at the racetrack, hiding it from my wife until the bank called. She'd forgiven me somehow, but not without tears and sleepless nights. Maybe that's why I kept bailing Ethan out. Guilt, redemption, a hope that if I could save him, I'd somehow atone for my own failures. But this $100,000, that wasn't a mistake. It was a catastrophe. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I finally asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Ethan shrugged, a gesture so infuriatingly familiar it made my fists clench. I thought I could fix it, he said. I got a second job, tried to pay it down, but the interest, it just kept growing. He buried his face in his hands, and for the first time, I saw not just shame, but fear. Not of me, but of himself, of the man he'd become. I stood and paced the room, my footsteps heavy on the hardwood, the weight of his confession pressed against my chest. I could bail him out again, empty my retirement savings, maybe sell the cabin upstate. It had hurt, but I could do it. I'd done it before. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way his shoulders shook, or the way he couldn't meet my eyes. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about who Ethan was, and who I was letting him become. Ethan, I said, stopping in front of him. I'm not doing it this time. His head snapped up, shock replacing shame. Dad, I held up a hand, cutting him off. I'm not abandoning you, but I'm done fixing your messes. You need to face this. His mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. I sat beside him, closer than I had in years, and let the silence stretch. It was uncomfortable, raw, but necessary. For the next hour, we talked not as father and savior, but as two flawed men. He told me about the pressure to keep up appearances, the friends who flaunted wealth he didn't have, the spiral of denial that led to maxed out cards. I told him about my own gambling days, the shame I'd carried, the work it took to rebuild. It wasn't easy, My instinct was to protect him, to shield him from the consequences. But love isn't always about making things easy. Sometimes it's about letting someone fall so they can learn to stand. We made a plan together. He'd call the credit card companies, negotiate payment plans, maybe consult a debt counselor. I'd help not with money, but with support. I'd be there for the calls, the late nights, the moments when he felt like giving up. It wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't a bailout. It was something better, a chance for him to take control, to rebuild his life, not on my dime, but on his own terms. As the weeks passed, Ethan changed. He took a second job, cut up his cards, and started tracking every penny. It wasn't glamorous microwave dinners and no more weekend trips, but there was a spark in him I hadn't seen in years. Pride. Not the hollow kind that fueled his spending, but the quiet kind that comes from facing your demons. I watched him struggle, and it hurt, but I also watched him grow, and that healed something in me I didn't know was broken. One night, months later, he showed up with a pizza and a grin. "Paid off the first card today," he said, his voice steady. I clapped him on the back, harder than I meant to, and we ate in silence, the kind that felt like victory. He wasn't out of the woods yet, far from it, but he was fighting. And for the first time, I believed he could win. This journey taught me something I wish I'd learned sooner. Love doesn't mean solving someone's problems. It means giving them the strength to solve their own. Ethan and I are still navigating this, but we're doing it together, not as debtor and savior, but as father and son. If you're reading this, think about the times you've helped someone or been helped. Was it a fix or a chance to grow? Share your thoughts. What's the right way to handle a loved one's mistakes?